I'm Shirley Makela, and with me today is Tony Urbanski. Of course, we're both with the Master Gardeners program, and we're continuing our discussion today about a project that Tony and I have been deeply involved in, the development of the piece of property on the corner of John and Paris Streets. We've already discussed the development of the site plan on our previous program, and today we are on the parkland itself, and we are going to get into a little bit of background as to how we acquired this particular property for development and how we have gotten to this stage. Tony, you've been involved with us almost from the beginning. The idea behind this project goes back several years, and coincidentally there were several different groups that were working towards the same.
Yes.
The first that I heard about it, Claire Liinamaa, who is our present president of the Horticultural Society, had been to a convention in Southern Ontario, and one of the other horticultural societies down there had developed a parkland site of this type. So she came back full of enthusiasm to do the same type of thing in Sudbury. Unfortunately, we had the interest and the knowledge and the dedication to do that sort of thing. We didn't have property available to us. The city had this piece of property that had been not exactly let go to the point of an eyesore, but it certainly wasn't attractive enough to be an asset. And they were looking to sell the property because they had no immediate use for it. And at that time, the ratepayers in this neighborhood stepped in and decided that rather than let it go to a commercial development or something that may be a negative influence, they would like to see it developed into a park. And it was a really good exercise in communications and brainstorming and networking, because we were looking for something at the same time that they had a project in mind and were looking for someone to take it over. So it worked out rather well. We're now into our third year, actually,
third year.
Of
I think we
involvement with it.
We initially started in 1986, where we sat down as a committee.
This is when sort of the light bulb started to flash.
Yeah, the light bulb started to flash, and we started to think what we were going to do with this site. So initial plan was that we would develop a site here like a parkette, make use of the natural features, and we decided to go with a 3 or 4 year plan. The first year was to come in, remove the vegetation, and basically clean the site up, pick up the garbage, and return back the trees.
Yeah, one of the things that amazes me, and I keep repeating it from time to time, to this point we have picked up 8 garbage bags full of glass alone, plus other assorted garbage, and we've still got a lot of broken bottles and this sort of thing on the rock, but it just amazes me how much garbage can accumulate on a piece of property that's not being maintained properly. Okay, so this is roughly what we had at the onset.
Yes. Yes. We're concerned here with there's be a lot of brush, grass in the area here at the back. And so the phase 1, we wanted to come in and clean the site up. Okay, phase 2, which we're into now, was to develop a type of a parkette here. And phase 3 would be to make use of the natural features of the rock and develop a rock garden.
Mm-hmm. So we haven't actually gotten into the development of the rock garden yet.
No.
But that will be coming then next spring. It's interesting to see the before and after pictures, because it reminds us just how far we've come so far. It is really obvious the improvements that have been made to this point. The property had grass existing on it, and the city was maintaining the grass, but it was not superior quality. It was really badly deteriorated over the years. And this year we had hired 3 students, and they were responsible for a lot of the heavy labor involved in lifting the sod, the existing sod, laying down new grass, digging out the flower beds, spreading the topsoil, as well as this very labor-intensive rock interlocking brick pathway that we have. And of course, this all
And I
adds
like
up to a very attractive end product.
with the city of Sudbury Parks and Rec Department there, we obtained quite a bit of help from them. And this summer with the Summer Olympics here, they were quite busy. And especially with the 2 or 3 week drought that we had. You know,
That was very challenging.
Just maintaining the grass here.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to drop by the site a couple of times on my days off, and everybody seemed to be chipping in, working together. And I appreciate it because you get to see, after 3 years, you get to see the finished product. And I'd like to see it in 5 years' time when we finish the rock garden and that.
Yes, well, it is very satisfying even to this point. The sad part was that some of the timing was, there's always something that ends up throwing a monkey wrench into the business, because we had just gotten the annuals planted and the flowers were there, and then we got hit by this terrible drought, and panic set in because we didn't want to see everything dry out. We had to truck water in, and in a lot of cases we carried it by pailfuls from the lake and did the watering manually, and it was really quite a going concern for a while. That was one of the important deadlines that we had. We had to rush through a lot of hours of work to get a good display by the time our world visitors arrived for the World Juniors Championship, and I think we succeeded quite well in that.
We made it. And,
unfortunately, by the time a lot of our preparation was done, we were rather late in the season, and it was difficult to find quality annuals at that time, and Joe Reed from the Southview Greenhouse Growers was very generous to supply us with the annuals that we needed, and it gave us that instant impact that we were looking so much for. This tree in the background obviously is a stable portion of what we have existing from the beginning, and we've still maintained that as some kind of a focal point.
Yes, like in the design process, it's very important to look at your natural elements. And for an example, this site here, we have the rock, so we can use the rock for the rock garden. This Manitoba maple here, there was concern about maybe taking it down, but I like to use the natural elements that are here. So in the meantime, we decided to prune it up, clean it up. And right now we're sitting on the bench underneath it, so it provides a lot of shade in the summer. Maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, the tree is due to the winter elements in Sudbury area, they probably die back, and we can use this area for a planter. So, but right now it's serving its purpose, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, so it isn't the best example of a perfect tree, but it's here.
It's here,
and it's
it'll be here for a while.
We're using it for what we can get out of it. Another important thing perhaps to mention is the fact that this cooperative effort that we have now with the Parks and Rec is more or less a continuing commitment on our part. This past year, up to this point, let's say, we have not really been involved with too much expense, because the development itself requires a lot of brainstorming and planning on paper, but it doesn't really require money. But this year they had allotted a budget for us to develop it, and the hopes are that the budget will be extended throughout the next number of years until the upper portions of the property can be developed to a point where it is the planting is done, and it's just a matter of maintaining from year to year then.
Right. Speaking of budget, like especially it came down to the home landscaper, and that once the landscaper's home, the budget's very important, because you know what figures you're working with, and you know what you can do with those figures, and you have to work within that budget. So whether you're working in home landscape, a small park list, or a large complex building, it's very important to discuss that, and not only after the project is finished, but also for the initial maintenance of it for years ongoing.
That's right, and it does require a certain amount of money to maintain year after year.
Yes.
It's fine to look at established gardens perhaps in England and say that this is exactly what we want, but if the money isn't there, there's no point in aiming for something like that, if it's totally unrealistic, you have to be honest with yourself
Yes,
and
you
the
do.
resources that are available to us. But the agreement is that the money will be available, so we're working very hard to stay within the budget that has been allotted to us, and I think it's going to work out rather well. It means that we are continually having to go back and renegotiate with the Parks and Recreation, because the property still is belonging to the city, so they have the final say as to what is to be done. We're responsible for developing, but we still are answerable to them. Okay, is there anything else that we should get into? This original area is so obviously needing work that it's very encouraging to go back and have a look at these and see just how far we've come and what can be done.
Yes, the big improvement on this site here when we looked at it was the vegetation on the grass area. You get a lot of dead grass in that. It was poor drainage. We had to completely remove the vegetation off this site here and bring in topsoil on that. And we resodded it. And that was a big plus right there, just the sod alone.
It made things look very attractive. So we're going to be getting into a little bit more detail as to where we go from here. On our next program, we're going to have a better look at the rockery area, and we're going to discuss our plans for the future on that. So hopefully you will join us again on our next program when we will continue this discussion about the project. Thank you for being with us today, and join us again. I'm Shirley Makela from the Master Gardeners program, and again joining us today is Tony Urbanski. We're going to get into another portion of discussion about the development of our project on the corner of John and Paris Street. We've talked about establishing a site plan, some of the decisions that have to be made, and we've discussed what we've done in phase 1 and phase 2 to this point, getting it into at least an attractive show piece. And we're going to talk about our plans for the coming year, next spring, and exactly what our next step is going to be. Behind us is something that we have a lot of in Sudbury, rocks. Tony was saying that was one of the first things, obviously, that he noticed about Sudbury when he moved up here. My dream is to see Sudbury developed into the rock garden capital of the world.
That's right. It could be. It could be. I think it's a great advantage rock here to use it. I think we should use it to our best ability. Once we're talking about phase 3 here, we're going to utilize this rock in front of us here, the Florida Rock Garden, and hopefully next springtime we'll start. Basically what I do is when I come to a site, the most important thing is site inventory, and we'll be getting that later on. But right now, if we're looking at this site here, we are going to utilize the rock we'll bring in topsoil here for our plantings of our plants.
That's an important thing to remember, because often the rock as it exists is not suitable to support life.
No.
There may be some soil in the rock pockets, but it's usually not the best. And if you want to have a successful rock garden, you take out what's there and you supplement it with some good soil that has fairly quick drainage, but also good enough humus content that it will keep things growing nicely.
It's very important. With this site right here, we're looking at removing some of the vegetation. Be back in here with the scrub brushes and that. But at the same time, it's very important here to keep the larger trees at the back. Like the larger trees act as a buffer zone between this property and the private property. At the same time, with the noise of the traffic, your trees reduce the noise.
So that's a whole different sort of level of commitment that you have with landscaping. It's not just to have things looking great and do things as the way that you want, but you also have to be sensitive to your surroundings and the conditions that are presented to you.
Yes. That's be one of the most important things in a site design, is that to me is your site inventory. And you have to know what's on the site, the good points, what the poor points, and your limitations in order to come up with a design that is suitable for that site. And this site was very interesting. We had quite a few problems with it.
But it has so much potential. I'm really excited about seeing this in the next couple of years, because I can visualize exactly what we can do with it. It has a great deal of potential.
Yes.
My philosophy has been, if life hands you lemons, make lemonade. And with this amount of rock on a visible piece of property, it can be quite a nice little pot of lemonade. You know, we can do something with it.
Once I see the site develop, I get more excited, and I'm looking forward to doing this third stage here.
Yeah, next year will be fun for us. There is space here for walkways, so we'll have paths to sort of separate rock plantings.
Yes, it's a possibility. Right now we're looking at a two-phase design in a rock garden. This will be your lower level here.
And here again, we do the most obvious things first if we have a choice, because we want it to look nice from the street. That's the whole
And a lot of your
objective
plantings here that you'd be using would be like perennials. You'd be using like rock crest, helism, ground phlox, be snow in the summer.
And there's a fairly good supply of rock garden material available. A lot of it will be donated by other members of our garden club. And we have also had access to some plantings that Laurentian University had in their rock garden. And when that was torn apart for development of their library building, we were able to stockpile some of this, and we have it in storage to be incorporated here. So that is not going to be a problem finding material.
No, in fact, I'm quite excited about the plants we're getting from Laurentian. There's quite a few plants here I haven't seen for quite a while, and it'll be great to plant them here.
Yes. So there's going to be a certain amount of educational value too, because we can label things as we plant them, so it's easy for amateur gardeners to come out, see things that are in bloom, and have names attached to them as well, so they will know what to order when they're looking to replace.
The educational part of it is just as important in the design too. With the second phase of this, we're looking at be putting in a path just beyond that scrub brush, which would come up from the sidewalk through here and back down again, and your second tier of rocks will be planted. And so eventually, over a 5-year plan, it should be developed. So it's something to look forward to.
Okay, so it'll be mainly perennials, I would think, and shrubberies?
Yes.
With a certain supplementing, I suppose, of annuals the first year until things fill in rather well.
We can tie in our annuals with our flower beds that we have right now. Like an example here, we have the lism, which is basically ground cover. We can tie that color scheme into your rock garden, which I find is very important. You have to have a continuation of color. And the basic thing with annuals and perennials that with the flowering is that your warm colors will come out more in a sensitive degree, like this with lots of sunshine, as your cool colors will recede. So we have a great opportunity here to bring up the flower beds in front using warm colors, and as you rock garden, you can drop back to your paler colors.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Okay. What other considerations did you have to have enter into your decision making here when you were looking to develop this property? It's a rather simple concept, and yet I'm not sure if the responsibility had been left with me that I would have known exactly what to do with it.
Well, as I mentioned before, the most important thing in the site design is the site inventory. And what I mean by that is that you have to know what is on the site, like your limitations of the site, your good points, your poor points.
It's almost like letting the property talk to you, in a sense.
Just about. Because sometimes if it did, it would be a lot easier. You know, this site here, we had a drainage concern. Obviously, it's bedrock. You have a very shallow soil conditions. Your topsoil you had to bring in. We looked at the vegetation. For an example, the clump of trees there we left. We rather than take them out. The rock we're using to its best of its ability. We decided to, instead of seed, to sod. With the annual beds, it was a combination of whether we went with beds of shrubs or we go with annuals or perennials. And seeing it was the Summer Olympics, we wanted a quick display, and one of the best ways to do a quick display is through annuals. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, every year that these annuals can be changed, your color schemes can change, and it can tie into themes. If the city has a theme, or whether the Sudbury Horticultural Society has a theme, you can tie it in.
Mm-hmm. So you don't necessarily have to lock yourself into a permanent grouping of any specific plants.
No, you don't. At the same time here, one of your big factors you have to take in the size of the site. It's a smaller site. It has certain limitations to it. With your climatic conditions here, is a big factor. Like being on the corner of the lot is wide open. You're subject to winds. With your traffic, your vegetation is subject to salt spray. Mm-hmm. And also you have to consider in the winter months your snow removal. The snow is going to be done too. So besides the different site inventory, it's not just like during the springtime. You have to think the 4 seasons.
Well, you also have to take into consideration just what the property will be used for. Yes. And I know you gave that some thought. The fact that it is fairly close to the downtown core, and the fact that it is fairly close to the hospital areas, mm-hmm.
Those
things played a part in your decision making.
Yes, it did. One of the main purposes of the site is that people can appreciate it. It can be used for education purposes like rock garden. You can come here and relax. You can sit on the benches, read a newspaper. So I'd like to see the site used.
Well, I think it's fairly obvious that it has been used. We have a fair bit of traffic going through. We're very impressed with the fact that garbage has not been much of a problem. We were worried about that.
Yes.
And a piece of property that is a display kind of a thing can be very quickly ruined if there's litter all over the place.
Yes. The 2 factors to consider when you develop a site like this is number one, as you mentioned, is the garbage concern.
Okay, so if you're worried about garbage, give people a place to put their trash, and hopefully they'll cooperate and meet you halfway on it.
The second factor, it's unfortunate, but is vandalism. And I think if you keep things simple, there's less chance of vandalism.
Well, I think we've accomplished that. It's simple, but it's also very effective. We just want to mention that someday in the near future, we're hoping to get a commemorative plaque put up to recognize the fact that this is a project of the Horticultural Society. And we would like to encourage you that if you do have rock on your property, enhance it rather than cover it up, because it can be a real asset. Tony, I'd like to thank you for your input into the project as well as these last few programs. We really appreciate you lending that kind of expertise to something that we're doing. And I want to remind you that if you have problems of any kind, the Master Gardeners are here to help. So please feel free to contact them at some of the clinics or the hotline, and the number will be shown at the end of the program. Join us again for our next show. Thank you very much.